Mondays, huh? I know the joke doesn't work because it's not a Monday, but we're talking about the movie based on the cat that loves Lasnaga and hates Mondays. It's some review of Garfield the movie. Specifically Garfield the movie 2, because I actually tried watching the first Garfield movie and I couldn't find much to say about it, and I thought that it'd be more interesting to talk about the sequel that for some reason exists. So we're talking about Garfield 2, A Tale of Two Kitties. I was about to say Big City Kitty and I knew that wasn't the title.
But when a simple mix-up,
Garfield?
What the devil is a Garfield?
has them trading places,
Prince, I found you.
Oh dear.
Help, please.
Call a cop.
they'll see
Get a load of this dump.
Your Highness, you are the last heir to the throne.
It's good to be king.
how the other half lives.
What gruel is this?
Garfield, when do you say no to lasagna?
You do realize I'm a cat, don't you, sir?
When the going gets tough, the great ones party.
Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties.
Does this castle make my butt look a little too big?
Hey, do you remember the first Garfield movie that came out in 2004? Well, guess what? 20th Century Fox did, because it was moderately successful, and they were like, hey, let's make a second one, even though, like, nobody's gonna want to see it. Breckin Meyer, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and Bill Murray return in another adventure with America's favorite fat cat, and this time, Garfield's giving England a royal treatment. It's a British invasion of a different kind when Garfield, along with pals John and Odie, travels to London and meets his mirror image of Prince, an aristocratic kitty who has inherited a fabulous castle. The two trade places, and soon Garfield's living large as only he can. There's just one problem. The dastardly Lord Dargis wants him out of the picture. Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties is twice the laughs and double the fun for the whole family. It's good to be the king. Oh my god, that's one of the longest descriptions I've ever read that was on the back of a DVD box. Like, Flying Ryan and Gulliver's Travels were nowhere near that. Of all things, they decided to make the second Garfield movie essentially just Prince and the Pauper, except this time you have Garfield getting switched out with a cat that looks exactly like him, but it's from some British royal family, or some rich family, and yeah, they end up getting switched, and wacky ensues. Specifically, the other cat, who was just given the name Prince, no relation to the artist formerly known as, he's a cat that's this royal, elegant cat who just so happens to look like Garfield, and he's played by Tim Curry, which I think is very appropriate because all throughout this movie it straight up just sounds like he's just doing Nigel Thornberry. We cut over to America where we see our main Garfield trio. We see Garfield, John, and Odie. Garfield's still a CG cat played by Bill Murray, and I find it funny that Bill Murray said that he hated the first Garfield movie and then turned around and did A Tale of Two Kitties.
So do you have any regrets?
Garfield, maybe?
It's the ultimate example of an actor realizing they're in a shitty movie and then they're going, I'm not going to do that again, and then some studio head is like, yeah, there's a piece of paper here that says you're going to. Odie, who's just a regular dog, and John is played by Breckin Meyer, probably close to the end of his career. Same with Jennifer Love Hewitt as Liz, who I actually don't remember reading the comics, but I do remember watching the cartoon a lot growing up, and it feels like their characters are drastically different from the originals than they are here. Like, John is supposed to be more of like a goober who's like always fucking things up and always makes himself look like a complete idiot, and Liz is always like out of his league and like totally like not interested in him. Here, Liz is just generic love interest who does like him. Like, in the first movie she even seems to have feelings for him, and he's just like generic pet owner, like, guy that gets the plot going in this movie. Breckin Meyer really doesn't add anything to the role of John Arbuckle. Anyway, John's gonna propose to Liz, but Liz says that she's going to some kind of big animal event thing in the UK, and of course this is what's gonna get our characters to England. There's a thing very early on that seems like it's gonna be an important plot point, but it just is immediately dropped. It's just like a quick gag of John dropping them off at the kennel, and like the next scene they immediately are out of there and they book it to England by sneaking into John's luggage. And I don't know, like, that felt like a completely missed opportunity for something to actually happen in the movie, but yeah, it's just completely nixed. It's just a quick gag and then there they are. They hop aboard ship and they're off to England. Meanwhile in England, the rich old lady that owned the Prince Tim Curry cat has passed away, and she's giving all of her fortune to that cat instead of her faithful butler, who's played by Billy Connolly. Second time him appearing on the show. First time was sadly Gulliver's Travels, another 20th Century Fox bomb. Sounds like he's channeling like his Scottish John Cleese voice like all throughout the movie. But anyway, yeah, he's an evil butler, evil sumbitch. He wants to kill the cat so that way he can get the fortune. And yes, Disney has done this before, and it was a way better movie. Meanwhile, John and Liz head out for the day, and they just tell Garfield and Odie to stay in the hotel room. Of course, they end up going out, and we get the token scene that is in every movie about Americans coming to the UK, of them taking in the sights, a lot of beauty shots of London, and they do the thing where they're messing around with some royal guards, and Odie pisses on his leg, and they're running away, and they say the British are coming. You have seen this scene in like any movie where Americans come even remotely close to Europe. It could be like one scene, it could be like the first scene in England. The scene is such a cliche, and it's so fucking annoying when it's in here. Anyway, butler Billy Connolly tries to get rid of the cat by drowning him. He puts him in a basket and throws him in the river, and he ends up going through the sewage treatment plant, and he ends up popping out in the streets. It happens to be the exact same street that Garfield is at, and Garfield ends up getting taken away by one of the many assistants at the mansion or whatever, and John ends up seeing the prince cat, thinks it's Garfield, and takes him home. So that's the big switcheroony of the movie. From there, it's your typical plot that you come to expect, where Garfield loves a life of luxury, which he already had back in America, except this time it's on a more grand scale, I guess. He ends up realizing that none of the barnyard animals that live on the castle grounds, because they have that, and he realizes that they don't really like him because they know he's not in fact Prince, and there's a scene where the Tim Curry cat has lasagna for the first time, and it's just a bunch of stupid shit like that. If it isn't that, there's a bunch of scenes where Billy Connolly is trying to kill the Garfield cat, but he's constantly getting one-upped and constantly getting bamboozled, and a bunch of annoying, stupid pratfalls and shitty slapstick comedy you're used to seeing in bad family movies from the mid to late 2000s. Tim Curry cat ends up escaping out of the apartment, and he ends up right back at the castle. Him and Garfield interact with one another. Barnyard animals talk about how Billy Connolly wants to kill off the cat, and so they decide they're going to put up a big trap for him and stop him. Meanwhile, John, Liz, and Odie then head off to the castle because they found out about the confusion. Then we get another cliche from stupid family movies like this, where the ending has the bad guy getting banged up with more unfunny slapstick in a series of traps, very similar to Home Alone. Again, they needed to have bad comedy in this crappy family movie from Fox, so they were like, okay, what are we gonna do? Have all the traps of this guy getting banged up and dinged up and put a bunch of funny slapstick sound effects all over it. Probably the funniest thing in this whole scene is there's a part where he threatens Jennifer Love Hewitt, and he like holds up like a mini cannon to her, because I guess they couldn't use like a musket or something like that because it'd be too over the line for a PG. But then Breckin Meyer just comes in holding a crossbow. I don't know why, that was probably the funniest. Just that image was funny to me. Point is, they stop the evil John Cleese butler. The two cats are finally back in their proper place, and John proposes to Liz. And there's one big poolside party at the end to end off this movie, and this was not good. To me, this feels like a straight-to-video sequel that somehow got to the big screen because they had enough big-name actors coming back from the first one. The other problem is it falls into cliches. It really just falls into the same trappings of, you know, Prince and the Pauper storyline, unfunny slapstick, generic characters. Also has that same problem from the first movie in that the main characters themselves actually don't really feel that much like they're from the comics at all. Like, or for me, because again, I didn't read that much Garfield, but I did watch a little bit of the cartoon growing up, and it did feel like those characters were way different compared to how they are here. The few moments of screen time they have, they don't feel like the same people. This movie does have that problem of a straight-to-video sequel where it feels like they had no good concept and they were just like, okay, what do we do? Story based on Prince and the Pauper, alright, there we go, just make it. Waste of Tim Curry and waste of Billy Connolly. It really does just kind of fall in the same trappings of the other bad family movies from Fox that we've looked at on the show. Like, this movie seriously is on par with, like, Gulliver's Travels and Marmaduke, because it just is another generic family movie that Fox was just relying on brand recognition instead of actually trying to make a good movie. They were just like, oh, well, the first Garfield movie was successful. We have a contract that says Bill Murray has to come back, so we can clearly make another one. Hopefully it's successful, but guess what? It wasn't successful enough for them to make a third one. I bet Bill Murray was happy about that. That way he can focus his career on being in other things, like being a fucking throwaway character in fucking terrible Ghostbusters 2016. Anyway, that concludes the two cat movies. Anyway, that concludes the two cat-related movies that I was going to talk about for April. We have 3 Blockbuster videos coming up in May. I don't know if I really want to give away what they are, but we do have 3 Blockbuster reviews coming up for next month. And before you ask, no, we're not going to be doing Cats 2019. We might do it some point in the future, but I don't want to do it directly after doing Halle Berry's Catwoman and Garfield 2. Just know that there are going to be 3 Blockbuster episodes, and they're going to be movie reviews once again, so look forward to that in May. Until then, I'm Adam Sykes of The Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.
Odie, no, don't do the ugly American thing.
The British are coming! The British are coming!